Maryland football has one of the most underrated receiving rooms.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of the Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Maryland football, let's get into it a little bit. I think that their receiving room actually has become one of the more underrated units in the Big Ten. One thing we know about the Terps receiving room and one thing we know about Maryland football and Maryland football receivers over the past 10 years or so, there's going to be some good receivers that come out of Maryland. It's just the way it is, whether it's Tre Moore a while ago now, who's now on the Patriots and is doing his own thing at the Patriots. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about Stephon Diggs and all the stuff he's doing with the Patriots. But hopefully, on a serious note, he has a breakout year with Drake May, or it's Tre Moore, who's down in Chicago, was originally a Panther, who's one of the better, I think, one of the better receivers. Two guys who are one of the better receivers in the NFL. I'm not saying they're like top 5, maybe even not even top 10 guys, but like they're definitely pretty elite. And Diggs has been in that conversation, but that's besides the point. Or recently, when it's been guys like Ty Felton, Jayshon Jones got his chance in the NFL a little bit last year. Caden Prather, Rakeem Jarrett. Maryland's going to have some receivers. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it's been over the last couple of years. And credit to Mike Locksley, credit to other Maryland staff. Maryland's been one of those programs that is known for having good receivers. And so when I look at this year's receiving depth chart, I'm not amazed at it. I don't sit here and I'm not like, this is the best receiving room that I've seen Maryland have. It's not clear and obvious who's going to jump out of this world or who's going to be a lead or whatever the case is in this Maryland receiving room. But I came to kind of notice that Maryland's receiving room is honestly, I think, one of the more underrated units in the Big Ten. I think that it can be really good this year. It can also, I think there's definitely a variance and more variance in what we've seen, but I think it's an underrated room. When we talk about other receivers in the Big Ten, you think about some of the guys up in Oregon. I know their best receiver just got injured, and Evan Stewart. First thing that comes to mind is probably Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Ohio State. They probably have two other guys that are going to be first rounders somewhere on that team. And you think of schools like that. You don't usually think about us this year, and I think if everyone had to rank the Big Ten receiving rooms, I think Maryland would be towards the bottom. I do. I think it would be towards the bottom, which is very unlike Maryland. Like, because last year I would have said we probably would have had a top 5 unit in terms of the Big Ten receiving room. I probably would have put Ohio State above us. I would have put Oregon above us. I'm trying to think of who else I probably would have put above us. Not Penn State. I'm trying to think of the elite teams. I wouldn't put Michigan's receiving room above us. But last year, it was like pretty clear that I was top 5, maybe top 4, maybe even higher than that. I don't think you can go higher than top 4. But this year, I think when you would ask people, a lot of people would tell you Maryland's receiving room doesn't look awesome. It doesn't look great. There's a lot of kind of question marks. There's a lot of different guys that might be good. There's a lot of different players that just haven't gotten the chance but have the potential. But I'm here to tell you guys that I think Maryland's receiving room is going to be good. It's a bunch of guys that have been underrated. That's one of the biggest reasons why I say it's an underrated room. Because as the individuals, these are a bunch of guys that have been underrated, like guys that haven't played a ton, guys that haven't done a ton, but either were high-level recruits, have shown it in flashes, and all these different things for me to come to the theory that this receiving room is underrated. And I'll go through the guys that I think can be elite and can be really good for this team. And I just think we're going to look back at this year and we're like, dang, we thought our receiving room wasn't going to be good, but we never need to doubt that again. for Maryland football. That's not a part of this team that we need to doubt. That's not a part of this team that we need to worry about. Maryland's receiving room is going to be good. It just is. And I think that's something that we're going to talk about at the end of the year. That's something that we're going to feel good about after the year. And I think it's going to be one of the strengths of our team. I'm having trouble finding some strengths with this team, but I think the receiving room could be it. So when I think about underrated, I think of Octavian Smith. Octavian Smith Jr. is underrated to me. He's very underrated in terms of Big Ten receivers. Not a guy anyone's going to talk about. Not anyone's going to have him on a draft board, or nobody's going to preseason have him all Big Ten or anything like that. But he's a guy that was so sneaky productive with two guys outside of him that were really good players. Like Ty Felton was in the Biletnikoff conversation. Caden Prather went and got drafted by the Bills, and hopefully he makes that team. And Octavian Smith, like, quietly had a little stretch of a couple-game stretch where arguably he was our best receiver. There was like a 3-game stretch where you could argue that Octavian Smith was our best receiver. And it came against some good competition, too. It came against guys that were really good. And I think everyone talks about those two guys last year, Ty and Caden, that people aren't really going to want to give Octavian Smith credit. People aren't really going to talk about Octavian Smith, but he's a guy that has these traits and this athleticism and this explosiveness that he could burst onto the scene this year. And I think when we talk about underrated receivers, I think he's number one on this team, and just underrated players that could end up being really good this year for Maryland. Like when I talk about that stretch, he had 8 receptions against USC, 84 yards. We don't win that game without him. And then the next week against Minnesota in a loss, had 4 receptions, 51 yards. The next week against Oregon, 5 receptions, 46 yards, and a touchdown. And to add on, had a touchdown against USC as well. Just had a stretch during the season where I looked at him. I was like, Octavian Smith, I know we have Ty Felton, who's went 3rd round in the NFL draft. I know we have Caden Prather, and I know there's some other guys. But, hey, Octavian Smith looks elite. Hey, Octavian Smith looks really good. Octavian Smith looks like a really good player. And when I think underrated, I think of Octavian Smith this year. And I think he is going to burst onto the scene as going to be one of the more underrated guys in the Big Ten because of what he did last year, but also just what we've seen in glimpses. And then another guy that has become underrated that no one really is talking about, but was really good at Oklahoma, is Jaleel Farouk. Like, did we forget in 2023 for Oklahoma, he had 45 receptions, 694 yards. The year before that in 2022, 37 receptions, 466 yards, only as a sophomore and junior. And last year went down with the injury. Jaleel Farouk, man, watch. He might be one of the most underrated. Like, you could argue him or Octavian for one of the more underrated guys, and I think they're going to make a really good duo in the Michael Oxley offense, where clearly receivers have shown that they're going to be good. They're going to be good. Our run game might not be good. Our offensive line might not be good. Some other position groups might not be good, but that receiving room is probably going to be good. And I think Jaleel Farouk is a guy who was really good at Oklahoma, his most proven guy. Honestly, if you just look at the straight numbers and you take out the injury, you might look at him as a guy that might be one of the better guys in the Big Ten, but we have to see it coming back from the injury. I think that's fair, but that's part of the reason why it's underrated. There's got to be some type of issue. There's got to be some type of asterisk when you're saying someone's underrated most of the time, and I think that's Jaleel's. He was injured. We haven't seen him a ton, but we know he's going to be a really good – I think he's going to be a really good player for the Terps, and I think he's going to do some good stuff for Maryland. So we'll see exactly how that ends up happening. But there's other body types in this room that just haven't gotten a chance, but I'm really high on. Caleb Webb, transfer from Tennessee. He's an example of that. He's a guy that came in as a high-level recruit, hasn't played a ton at Tennessee, but I think definitely could be a guy at 6'3" and supposed to be fast who could figure it out at Maryland. And if we have him start to figure it out. He actually did a little bit his freshman year, 16 receptions, 166 yards. His freshman year in 2024 didn't really do much, 6 receptions, 48 yards. So he's getting his chance this year. We'll see what he does with it. But he's definitely a guy as well that could end up being underrated. And then we talk about guys that could burst onto the scene that we're looking at. Mekhi White looked really good in Maryland spring game. Some really good stuff in Maryland spring game. We might be looking at Mekhi White as a guy who was like, that's our guy next year. That's our dude next year at 6'4", his body control, his body type. I'm telling you guys, it's a group that if guys start figuring out, which they should, like Mekhi White, he had a year. Caleb Webb's had a couple of years. Jaleel Farouk, we've seen it. Octavian Smith, we've seen it. It could be scary. And then we can't forget about guys like Shalik Knox. 4-star. We thought he could be next up. He's another guy. There's a lot of different players, Ryan Manning, that we might not look at as elite yet, but once we start throwing them the football, we'll see who's throwing them the football, whether it's Malik or Justin or whoever it is or a different guy. I think those guys can burst on the scene and be one of the more underrated pairings in the Big Ten. I don't think they're the best in the Big Ten. I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, that's a top 3 unit in the Big Ten. But I think it's a sneaky, underrated group that's going under the radar that probably I've been underrating it and that I've been underrating in past podcasts that could end up being really solid for the Terps. We'll see how it ends up coming together, but I just think those guys are going to end up being really decent for the Terps and end up putting us in a really good spot. But we'll see exactly what will end up happening with the Terps. But I think this wide receiver is underrated. Not saying we're the best in the Big Ten. I just think that it's underrated. We're going to talk about some of the Maryland basketball freshmen who can legitimately make an impact year one on this basketball team as a freshman. And we're going to include the redshirt freshman in that conversation as well to spice it up, make it a little more interesting. But we will talk about that next. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, periodic seat views, and no surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer. I was just on the app looking at games for the Red Sox because I'm in Boston for the summer, and there's a lot of different things, and you can do a lot of different things on the Gametime. They have zone deals where you're offering 60% off in great sections, which is a really good deal, as you guys can imagine. I really like looking at this app because when I was looking at the Red Sox, and you can do this for any other stadium, you can look at the actual view of your seat so you get a good idea of where you're sitting at, what's the view like, so you don't make any poor purchases. And with the Gametime guarantee, you can know you're getting their best deal. If you find a better price in the same row section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's talk about the Maryland basketball freshman class. I think, to me, and I'm going to include the red shirts, to me, there's a couple guys that can make an impact early on for Maryland's 2025 recruiting class. So it's really interesting. So it's come together now, and I'll go through each guy and be like, impact or not impact. We'll start with the headline guys. We'll start with Darius Adams. 5-star, maybe 4-star, depending on where you look. I don't think it's a real question if Darius Adams is going to play or not. I don't think that's a question that people are asking. I think the biggest thing about Darius Adams that people are probably wondering that people are going to ask is how much will he play and what kind of role will he have? But I don't think it's like a situation like, is he going to play? I think I'm kind of wondering how actually ready is he? I think he's going to be a really good role player next year for the Terps. I don't know if he's a guy that comes in and is like, oh yeah, that guy's a star already for the Terps. I can't really see that. But at 6'6", 170 pounds, hopefully by now, hopefully a little heavier than that by now. I'm sure Maryland will get him up a little bit. He is a guy that can help the Terps and make an impact on the Terps team. So I do think Darius Adams is going to be a good player for the Terps, but he's definitely a guy that will play. So we'll talk about that, or he's the first guy on the list. Alex Austin, to me, he plays. I think we're weak, and I'm sure most of you guys know who he is, but the 4-star, 3-star kind of really talented, actually, 6'9", lengthy, can shoot the ball as well. Most websites have him as a 4-star. Some people have him as a top-ranked player in Illinois. 247 is not as high as other websites are, but I like him a lot. As a guy that can play early on and as a developmental piece, I like Alex Austin a lot. I think he works for the Terps. I think he's going to be a really solid fit for Maryland basketball, and I think he's going to fit into what we want to do. And I think he makes a lot of sense for Maryland basketball. So I'm excited for Alex Austin to come in, play early. I think he can definitely help the Terps. We'll see what ends up actually happening with Alex, but I think he's going to play, and especially with Maryland's weak front court. Like, the front court's kind of weak, to be honest. Like, you like Pharrell Payne, you like Sanders, like, you like some of these guys, but you don't, like, feel like you have the depth back there where it's like, yeah, we can't play a guy like Alex Austin. So I don't think he starts, but I think he's in the rotation right away, and the way he stretches the floor at his size, his defensive upside, there's no reason for him not to play, I think. And so now the freshman guys, just Josiah Harper, I don't see him playing. He's just not. I think he's more a developmental guy, redshirt. He'll get better, but he's not really going to play early on. There's not much to say about him. He's 6'7" and athletic, but he's got a long way to go. He's no stars. Had some other interests, but I think that he's definitely not a guy that's going to start. But we'll see how he ends or play. But we'll see. You never know what can happen. And then some other guys that are redshirt freshmen, Andre Mills and George Turkson, are really interesting because both guys in high school were 4-star rated recruits. Andre Mills a guard, George Turkson a forward. I think we need George Turkson to play. He's a power forward. To me, he's like a forward, like a 3-4, like kind of that type of vibe. I think he's got to play for Maryland. I think he does because, to me, like I said again, it might be between him and Alex Austin for minutes, but we just don't have a ton in the front court, to be honest. And I think he's athletic, and we'll see how he actually ends up being. He redshirted obviously last year for Texas A&M, so we just don't really know much. But my thing is, if Buzz Williams wanted him back, he had to be a pretty good player. And then, so I think he actually is going to end up playing and having a role. I'm kind of curious what he looks like. I feel like when I watched him, his high school tape, which is not like a while ago, like you can't really judge too much on the high school. He was a little bit raw, so I'm interested to see kind of how he's come and like what he looks like now. But he's definitely a guy I think that's going to play for the Terps. And then you got Andre Mills. I think he's going to slide into the guard rotation. There's so many different guys that Maryland has to play at the guard spot, like Miles Rice, we like a lot, David Coit, Andre Mills, Isaiah Watts, Marquise Passmore. There's a lot of different guys that we're going to have to play at the guard spot, but I think Andre Mills plays. I do. I think he's talented. Another 4-star at a high school, top 100 recruit. I think he plays. And then Marquise Passmore also got some time. I'm still going to talk about him last year for Kansas. He's also a guy that I think is going to end up playing 4-star out of high school too. I think he's going to play right away. I just think it's going to be like a huge rotation to start until Buzz Williams figures out who the guys are, who needs to be in there. And then I think it'll dwindle down a little bit, and we'll have a kind of better sense of the rotation as we get into Big Ten play, who should be playing and all these different things once we start in Big Ten play and different things like that. So we'll see exactly what ends up happening. It'll be interesting. But I do think some of these guys play, but I could be wrong. Darius Adams, I think, will play, and I think some of the redshirts will play. Alex Austin's my biggest question mark. I think his opportunity, 6'10" and can shoot the ball. Like, it's tough to keep a guy like that off the court, especially because I think he's similar to Elijah Sanders, and we can play a lot of 4 out, which I like a lot with spacing in today's college basketball. But we'll see exactly how it ends up happening. So I do like it. I like the youth, and I like some of the young guys we have on this roster. But I do think that we'll have some guys that play. I think Josiah won't play. I think he's the only one that's like it's pretty obvious that he will not end up playing and is more of a developmental piece down the road. But he's 6'7", a freak. And I was listening to this story about Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton said he came into college with no starts, and then all of a sudden he was starting. And then they gave ESPN slid in 3 stars after, I guess. So at Iowa State, which is interesting to me, but we'll see exactly. We're going to talk about leadership next for Maryland football. Why I don't like how Maryland handles that. We'll talk about that next. Let's talk about Maryland football. I want to talk about a little bit about their leadership, where I don't think it's good enough. I think we're coming up shy in leadership. And anybody will tell you leadership is probably one of the most important things a team can have. And me being a college athlete and watching NFL and NBA and watching sports in general and just life in general, like the workspace, no matter where you are, leadership is so extremely important. And I'm concerned about Maryland football's leadership. I am. And I think it's one of my bigger concerns that it kind of just like flashed a light bulb in me today where I was like, who like are we looking at as leaders? I'd like if I was at the like press conferences and Mike Locke said, I'd ask. I'd be like, leadership's a huge thing. Like, who's been a leader out there? Like, who's the guys leading the summer workouts? Like, who's doing that for Maryland? Because like I feel like even in the past couple of years, and I'll expand, I've had an issue kind of with how we do like I'll talk about it in a second. I have issues with how we do the captains and like different things like that. You feel like I don't really know who the leaders are, but I'm also not in-house. But it's just important to have like guys that you like stuff's going bad. Like we know he's going to say something, or stuff's going horrible. Like he's going to say something. Like we know they're going to say something. Than having just like not much at all. So to me, there's a problem there. And the way we do the captains, I just haven't loved. It's like a weekly thing, and there's always a different one. And it kind of goes in with the rotation of Maryland football. And maybe this is just like me not liking the culture of it, but it kind of goes in with Maryland playing a ton of guys. Like I've always had to complain, like we're playing out too many guys. Like who are our starting 2 corners? Like who's our best 2 corners? Like play those guys. Who are our best couple linebackers? Like play those guys. Who's our best safety? Like play those guys. Like I don't need to see 5 different corners in the game at a time. And I don't need to see 5 different safeties and 5 different linebackers and all these different things. Like who are our guys there? And I think it goes on with how we do the captains. Every week there's a different captain doing a coin toss. And I think maybe this is part of the root of Maryland's problem last year when not everything's going well and you're not winning games. You need like a set. I really believe like you got to have a set 2 to 3 or whatever 4 captains. Like most teams have those, elect those. Like it's a big process. Like other seniors can still be leaders. It's not like those guys can't be leaders or older guys or anybody, but you need like a select 4 or 5 guys that you know are going to be the leaders. And Maryland hasn't done it like that. It's always been, oh, that's the elected captain this week. These are the 3 guys we're sending out there this week. Like, no, like let's have like our quarterback's usually going to be one, maybe not this year. Maybe this year would be a different. But I'm just not in love how we do some of it. And I think it's got to change. I'm curious what you guys think, because I think it's a problem. I think some of that shows up on film when we don't feel like sometimes we have that push from anybody. And you got to get it outside of the coach. Sometimes you got to get it outside the coach. If it's only coming from the coach, it's just not going to work. So that's kind of how I see it overall. But I'm curious what you guys think. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.